Morning, friends. This is the spoken word. This is a poem today, and we gotta have the regular podcast and the Jesus Freaks as well. But we got a poem done last night, and so whenever I get a poem done, I like to put it out there for you. And so here is the poem. Excuse me. It says, it's called Everyone. The name of the poem is called Everyone, and so it's from 2 Timothy. So here we go. You know that everyone in the province of Asia has deserted me, including Phygellus and Hermogenes. 2 Timothy 1:15. Everyone. Imagine for a minute that you're left all alone. Everyone gone. Yes, everyone you've known. Inconceivable, I know, but that's just what happened to Paul in the midst of his service of his apostolic call. For in the entire province of Asia, no friend there could be found, and so Paul, now bound in loneliness, his own voice the only sound, expressing his despair to Timothy, his true son, in this awesome biblical letter from the hand of Paul undone. And yet their little children, the secret of Paul's success was that he never forgot his father, whom by now Paul was mightily blessed. And even if men forsook him, Paul was always there, expressing his deepest desire, for Paul his wondrous care. And whether shipwrecked on an island, or in prison, or the deepest pit, Paul always now remembered that God's love would never quit. And so if all men forsake you, and after you've cried all your tears, remember in the valley of the shadow, there is absolutely no fear. Ooh, I like it. This is called Everyone. And it's a real, imagine. I mean, literally imagine tomorrow, everyone you know is gone. All your supposed friends are gone. Everybody has just left you. And you've been abandoned, literally abandoned, like Tom Hanks in Castaway. I mean, different, but the same. You literally have no one else to depend on but you and God, and that's it. That's what Paul went through here in the province of Asia. And so let's read this again. We always break it down. Everyone. You know that everyone in the province of Asia has deserted me, including Phygellus and Hermogenes. This 2 Timothy 1:15. Again, everyone. You will excuse me, it's 4-something in the morning. I'm about to take a nap in a little bit. Imagine for a minute that you're left all alone. Everyone now gone. Yes, everyone you've known. That's why solitary confinement is so hard for people. Because imagine it's just you, yourself, and you. Me, myself, and I. And that's all there is. Inconceivable, I know, but that's just what happened to Paul in the midst of his service in his apostolic call. This was Paul being an apostle. God calling him to this mighty ministry, writing the Bible and stuff, and yet no one stuck around. For in the entire province of Asia, no friend there could be found, and so Paul, now bound in loneliness, his own voice the only sound. And so, can you imagine? We read the Bible, and Paul wrote this and Paul wrote that, and that Paul was mighty. But Paul was a human being, just like the rest of us. If you read the end of Romans 7, when he talks about the sin that he dealt with, how when I do what I do not want to do, it's no longer I doing it. People forget that these guys like Paul were real, and they went through real loneliness and real sorrow. And we tend to think these guys are superhero, and they are super amazing folks. But they're super amazing folks with a call from God, yet still have a flesh, still have a mind, and still have a heart that can be lonely. And that's what Paul went through. Expressing his despair to Timothy, his true son, in this awesome biblical letter from the hand of Paul undone. So Paul couldn't talk to anybody, so he wrote a letter to Timothy and became part of the Bible. Isn't that cool? And from the hand of Paul undone. Paul's heart was broke. All the folks had left. And yet their little children, the secret of Paul's success was that he never forgot his father, whom by Paul now was mightily blessed. Whom by now Paul was mightily blessed. He never forgot Paul. He never forgot Papa. He never forgot Abba. He never forgot his God and his Father. He never forgot. There was always someone there with him, and there can always be someone there with you too. If you don't have any human beings, you have a Holy Spirit living inside of you who connect you directly to God, and that connection is real and it's total. For even if men forsook him, Paul was always there, expressing his deepest desire. For Paul, his wondrous care. God was always there with him. And again, still being abandoned was hard. But Paul never forgot that God was right there with him, and constant communication with him. And whether shipwreck on an island or in prison or the deepest pit, Paul always now remembered that God's love would never quit. Paul went through shipwrecks. Paul went through imprisonment. I don't know if Paul was ever thrown into, like a solitary confinement, these pit they used to put people down in. But, excuse me. He knew God's love wouldn't quit on him. I just got done doing Acts yesterday, listening to it, and when he's in prison, and I think him and Silas are in prison. They just got beat real bad, and they're in prison, and give me a second, brain dead. And they're singing and making music to God, and God opens all the doors of the prison. Pretty amazing. And so, if all men forsake you, and after you've cried all your tears, so when all men forsake you, and after you've cried all your tears, remember, in the valley of the shadow there is absolutely no fear. Even if you're walking through that Psalm 23 valley of the shadow of death, and again, not having anybody to be with and being completely alone can feel like a death. It really can. Being by yourself, and not because you want to be, but because you're forced to be, that's tough. That's really tough. Again, but we don't have to have any fear. Why? Because God is always with us. All right, this has been everyone's 2 Timothy 1:15. Hope you enjoyed that today. We love putting these out. Although we're sitting in a truck, it's about 10 degrees outside, and we have to shut the truck off. So in between these podcasts, we're going to have to keep turning the truck on so we don't freeze to death. It is cold, baby. It is cold up here in Kentucky. We're having a cold. We're supposed to get 5 to 8 inches of snow on Saturday. Cold, kids. Cold. All right, man. We love you. We'll talk to you tomorrow.